There is a number sitting quietly in your bank account right now, and that number is shrinking. Not because someone is stealing from you, not because the economy collapsed overnight, but because of something most people were never properly taught, something so fundamental to how money actually works, that the institutions holding your cash depend on your confusion to stay profitable. Today, we are going to talk about that. We are going to talk about compound interest, but not in the way your high school math teacher tried to explain it with a formula on a whiteboard that meant absolutely nothing to your life at the time. We are going to talk about the psychology behind why you keep misunderstanding it, why banks are specifically structured to benefit from that misunderstanding, and what shifts inside your brain when you finally see this clearly. Because this is not just a math problem, this is a behavior problem. And if you have been following this channel for any amount of time, you already know that the way we think about money determines every single financial outcome in our lives. Let me start with something that might feel uncomfortable. Most people, and I mean the vast majority, have a completely backwards relationship with compound interest. They know the word. They have heard it. They might even be able to tell you it means interest on interest. But knowing a definition and truly feeling the weight of something in your body are two completely different things. Banks know this. Credit card companies know this, mortgage lenders know this, and they have built entire business models around the gap between what you think you understand and what you actually understand. Think about the last time you signed up for something financial, a credit card, a loan, a savings account. What did you actually pay attention to? Most people focus on the monthly payment. They think in terms of what they can handle this month, not what this decision is going to cost them over the next 5 or 10 years. That is not a character flaw, that is human psychology. Our brains evolved to solve immediate problems. Our ancestors were not worried about retirement funds. They were worried about where dinner was coming from tonight. The financial industry did not create this tendency in us. They just learned how to exploit it with extraordinary precision. Here is where compound interest becomes either the most powerful tool you have ever used or the most expensive enemy you have ever made, depending entirely on which side of the transaction you are sitting on. When compound interest is working for you, it multiplies your wealth automatically. When it is working against you, it multiplies your debt automatically. The mechanism is exactly the same. The math does not care about your feelings. The math does not care about your intentions. It just runs. Let me paint you a real picture. Two people, same age, same income. Person A puts $3,000 into an investment account at 25 years old and never adds another dollar. Just lets it sit. Person B waits until they are 45 to start investing and puts in $3,000 every single year for 20 years. They contribute $60,000 total. Person A contributed $3,000. At 65, assuming a 7% average annual return, who ends up with more money? Person A. Because of compound interest and time. That example is real. It is taught in financial courses all over the world, and yet most people hear it, nod their heads, and then do nothing differently. Because the emotional reality of it has not landed, they understand it intellectually, but they have not internalized it behaviorally. That gap, that space between knowing and doing, is exactly where banks live. Now let me flip this to the other side, because this is where it gets painful and important. The average American household carries somewhere around $6,000 in credit card debt. Let us be conservative and say your card charges you 20% annual interest, which is extremely common right now. If you only pay the minimum payment each month, which is designed specifically to keep you in debt as long as possible, that $6,000 balance will take you over 17 years to pay off, and you will end up paying more than twice the original amount in interest alone. You did not borrow $12,000. You borrowed $6,000. But compound interest working against you silently transformed that debt into something almost unrecognizable. And here is the psychological trap that makes this so devastating. The minimum payment is designed to feel manageable. That is the point. Banks do not want you to feel the weight of what is happening. They want you comfortable. Comfortable customers do not pay off their balances. Comfortable customers keep spending, keep carrying balances, keep feeding the machine. The discomfort that would naturally push you to take action has been deliberately softened. This is behavioral engineering applied to your financial life, and most people have no idea it is happening. Let us talk about why your brain specifically struggles with this. There is a concept in behavioral psychology called hyperbolic discounting. It means that humans consistently value things in the present more than things in the future, even when the future reward is objectively larger. So when someone offers you $100 today, or $150 in 6 months, most people take the $100 today, even though waiting would make them 50% richer. Now scale that to the way you think about debt. Paying off debt aggressively requires sacrifice right now for a benefit you will not feel for years. That is neurologically hard. Your brain is not wired to prioritize future wealth over present comfort, and banks have calculated this beautifully into their business model. This is not about intelligence. I want to be really clear about that. Some of the most intellectually brilliant people I have ever come across carry credit card debt and have almost nothing in savings, not because they are careless or irresponsible, but because intelligence and financial behavior are almost completely unrelated. The behaviors that build wealth are not about being smart. They are about understanding your own psychological patterns and intentionally designing your environment to override them. That is what behavioral psychology applied to money is really about. Here is another piece of this that most people never think about. Banks profit from compound interest in two directions simultaneously. They charge it to you on loans and credit cards, and they pay it to you at a fraction of the rate on savings accounts. Right now, the average savings account in America pays somewhere between 0.5 and 1% interest annually. Meanwhile, credit cards are charging anywhere from 18 to 29%. That spread is not accidental. That gap is the business. When you deposit money in a bank, they lend it out at dramatically higher interest rates. They are using compound interest to grow their wealth using your money. You are the asset. You are the resource. The account is not there for your benefit. It is there for theirs. Now, I am not saying banks are evil. I'm saying the system is designed with a very clear logic, and that logic favors the bank every single time a customer does not understand what is happening. When you understand it, you can use the same system to benefit yourself. When you do not understand it, you are funding someone else's wealth growth. This brings me to something I think is absolutely critical for anyone who watches this channel regularly, because we talk a lot about the mindset of attraction and abundance and shifting your internal relationship with money. And I have seen people take those concepts and use them as a reason not to engage with the mechanics of money. They think, if I just feel abundant, the money will come. And there is truth in that, real psychological truth, because your emotional state absolutely affects your behavior, and your behavior affects your outcomes. But abundance thinking without financial literacy is like trying to drive somewhere without knowing how roads work. You have the right attitude, but you will still get lost. Understanding compound interest is not about becoming an accountant. It is about developing what I call financial emotional intelligence. It is the ability to feel the future in the present, to sit with a purchase or a financial decision and genuinely connect with what that decision will look like years from now. Most of us cannot do this naturally. We have to train it. We have to consciously practice making the invisible future more emotionally real to ourselves. One exercise that I think is genuinely powerful is what I call the compound projection exercise. Next time you are about to make a significant purchase on credit, especially one you do not have the cash for immediately, take 5 minutes and calculate what that purchase will actually cost you if you carry the balance. Go online, find a compound interest calculator, plug in the balance and the interest rate and the minimum payment, and look at the real number. Do not look away from it. Let yourself feel it. That discomfort is information. That discomfort is your brain finally receiving data it was designed to act on. The problem is not that people are lazy or irresponsible. The problem is that the true cost has been made invisible. Making it visible, even temporarily, can completely shift the decision. Now let us talk about the flip side one more time, because I do not want this to just be a conversation about debt and loss. Compound interest working for you is one of the most extraordinary things that exists in personal finance. And the psychological barrier to using it properly is the exact same barrier that makes it so dangerous when it works against you. It requires you to value the future more than the present. It requires patience. It requires sitting with discomfort in the short term for something you cannot immediately see or touch. Those are hard things for human beings to do, but they are learnable. And the people who learn them early build wealth that genuinely seems to grow on its own. The classic example is Warren Buffett, and I know you have heard his name 1,000 times. But stay with me here because the psychological point is more interesting than the financial one. Something like 97% of Warren Buffett's wealth was accumulated after his 50th birthday. He started investing as a child, built consistently for decades, and then compound interest did what it always does in the later stages, which is grow exponentially. Most people see the headline number and think he got lucky or had some superhuman ability to pick stocks. The actual story is that he understood time and compound interest at an emotional level, not just an intellectual one, and he let the math run. He did not get impatient. He did not constantly move money around trying to time markets. He understood that the system rewards patience in a way that nothing else does. The psychological shift that needs to happen is a shift in time orientation. Research in behavioral economics consistently shows that people who are naturally more future-oriented accumulate significantly more wealth over their lifetimes than equally intelligent and equally earning people who are more present-oriented. And here's what makes this genuinely exciting: your time orientation is not fixed. It is a trainable cognitive habit. You can deliberately practice thinking in longer time frames. You can build routines that consistently connect today's decisions to tomorrow's outcomes. Over time, this rewires the actual pathways in your brain that evaluate financial decisions. Something else worth examining is the social dimension of all this. We live in a culture that is absolutely saturated with signals to consume now. Advertising exists almost entirely to collapse your future thinking into the present moment. Buy now, pay later. You deserve it today. These are not neutral phrases. They are psychologically precise tools designed to override your future orientation and put you entirely in the present tense. And when you are in the present tense, compound interest working against you is invisible. You cannot feel a consequence that is 17 years away when everything around you is telling you to focus on right now. Banks benefit from this cultural environment without having to create it. The advertising industry does the psychological work of keeping you present focused, and then the financial products are right there, perfectly engineered to capture someone who cannot think past next month. It is a system that self-reinforces continuously, and opting out of it requires deliberate, consistent psychological effort. I want to talk about one more behavioral pattern that I see come up constantly when people start waking up to how compound interest actually works. And that pattern is shame. When people finally run the real numbers on their debt and see what they have actually cost themselves, the emotional response is often intense and often destructive. They feel stupid. They feel like they should have known better. They spiral into self-criticism that actually makes it harder to take action because shame is a paralyzing emotion. It does not motivate change the way people think it does. In fact, research in behavioral psychology shows consistently that shame typically produces avoidance behavior, not corrective behavior. When you feel ashamed, you are more likely to look away from the problem, not toward it. If you are sitting there right now with debt in a savings account that earns almost nothing and a vague sense that you have been losing this game without even knowing the rules, I need you to hear this clearly. The confusion that put you in that position was not random. It was not a personal failure. It was the predictable outcome of a financial system that benefits from your confusion and a psychological architecture that makes long-term thinking genuinely difficult. Understanding that is not an excuse to stay in that position. It is permission to move forward without the anchor of shame dragging you backward. The moment you understand compound interest not just as a formula, but as a force that operates continuously in your financial life, whether you pay attention to it or not, something changes. You start to see financial decisions differently. A credit card balance stops feeling like a manageable monthly expense and starts feeling like what it actually is, which is a machine that grows debt automatically while you sleep. A small, consistent investment stops feeling pointless because the amount seems too small to matter and starts feeling like what it actually is, which is a seed that contains decades of future growth inside it. This shift in perception is genuinely psychological. It is not about having more willpower or being more disciplined. It is about seeing reality more accurately. And when you see reality more accurately, your behavior changes naturally, because behavior is almost always downstream of perception. You do not act based on the world as it is. You act based on the world as you perceive it to be. Change the perception, and the behavior follows. Banks get rich every time you misunderstand compound interest because the misunderstanding is not neutral. It is not simply being uninformed. It is being actively positioned in a relationship with money where the confusion benefits someone else. Every month you carry a high interest balance, someone else's compound interest is growing. Every year you leave money in a low-yield savings account while inflation quietly erodes its value. You are effectively subsidizing the financial system that holds your money. The people who built that system are not confused about compound interest. They understand it with extraordinary clarity. They use it every single day. The only question is whether you are going to start using it too. The psychology of attracting money is real. The mindset work matters deeply. But the people who consistently build real, lasting generational wealth are the ones who combine that inner work with a clear and accurate understanding of how money actually moves in the world. Compound interest is not a complicated concept. It is a force. And like any force, you can either understand it and use it, or ignore it and be used by it. There is no neutral ground. It is running right now, in your account, on your debt, in your future. The question is just which direction it is running. If this video opened something up for you or shifted the way you were thinking about any of this, I genuinely want you to stick around. Hit subscribe, because we go deep on exactly this kind of content regularly, not just theory, but the real psychological patterns that determine why some people build wealth consistently and others stay stuck despite working just as hard. There are videos on this channel that will take you further into the behavioral science of financial decision-making, the emotional blocks that keep smart people broke, and the specific mental shifts that make the difference. You've already taken the first step just by watching this far. Come back. Keep going. This community is built for people who are ready to understand not just how to make money, but how their own mind relates to it. And that understanding changes everything.